For failure is not final, it's a classroom. When we hear the word failure, most of us think of endings. We think of doors closing, opportunities lost, and dreams that slipped away. But that is only one way to see it. A wiser way is to view failure not as a permanent state, but as a temporary teacher. Just like in school, when you miss the answer to a question, it does not mean you will never understand. It simply means you haven't learned the lesson yet. Failure is life's way of putting us in front of the chalkboard and saying, pay attention, there's something important here. Think about the times you have succeeded easily. They feel good, of course, for winning fills us with energy and confidence. But ask yourself honestly, what did you learn in those moments? Most of the time, success teaches us very little. Before, it makes us feel secure, sometimes even overconfident, but it rarely forces us to change, to improve, or to grow. Failure, on the other hand, demands attention. For it grabs you by the shoulders and makes you confront what went wrong, why it went wrong, and how you can do better. It is uncomfortable, yes, but it is also one of the most powerful sources of growth you will ever encounter. Every failure carries with it a lesson. But it might be about strategy. You planned poorly, so now you know how to plan better. It might be about people. You trusted the wrong ones, and now you see more clearly who deserves your trust. It might be about timing. You rushed or you waited too long, and now you know the importance of seizing the right moment. Whatever the case, failure is never just a dead end. It is always pointing somewhere. The problem is, most people are too focused on their disappointment to notice the signs. They see the red light and stop forever. Instead of realizing that the light will turn green if they learn and adapt. The woman who treats failure as a classroom is dangerous in the best way. She doesn't avoid mistakes because she knows mistakes are part of progress. She steps into challenges knowing there's a chance she might fall but with the certainty that if she does, she will rise with new knowledge. This mindset transforms her setbacks into stepping stones. Others may see her stumble but she sees herself getting stronger. Others may think she is losing, but she knows she is learning, and eventually learning always leads to winning. Failure also has the power to teach humility. When you fail, you cannot pretend you are perfect. You cannot hide behind appearances. It strips away ego and forces you to face the truth about yourself. And that truth, even if it stings, is valuable. It makes you sharper, more aware, more grounded. Humility is not weakness. It is strength under control, and failure is the classroom where humility is taught best. The woman who accepts this becomes wiser than those who only chase effortless victories. She understands that every person she admires today, every leader, every innovator, every success story, carried their share of failures first. So when you fail, remind yourself this is not the end. This is a lesson. Take notes. Study them. Apply them. Do not repeat the same mistake, but use it to carve a better path forward. Each failure you endure adds another layer to your wisdom, another tool to your toolbox, another story to your strength. At the end of the day, failure is not the opposite of success. It is part of success. It is the classroom where champions are made and wisdom is earned. The only true failure is refusing to learn. Everything else is progress in disguise. Wisdom grows where comfort ends. When life feels safe, predictable, and easy, there's little reason to stretch beyond what we already know. Comfort is a warm place, but it doesn't teach. It lulls us into repeating the same patterns day after day without growth. Wisdom, however, is born when we step into the unknown, or when the ground shakes beneath our feet, when we face a challenge that strips away our certainty. It is in those moments when we are uncomfortable, uncertain, and maybe even afraid, that we are forced to grow. Think about the times in your life when you learned the most. It probably wasn't when everything was going smoothly. It was when something broke down, when a relationship ended, when a job didn't work out, when you made a mistake you couldn't ignore. In those moments, you were confronted with yourself. You had to ask, what now? That question is the doorway to wisdom. The answers aren't found in comfort. They're found in reflection, in adaptation, and in the courage to take the next step, even when the outcome is unclear. Comfort zones protect us, but they also limit us. If you only stay where you feel safe, you only recycle the knowledge you already have. Growth requires discomfort. Imagine a seed underground. If it stays where it is, wrapped tightly in the soil, For it remains just a seed. For it to grow, it must break apart, push through the dirt, and stretch toward the light. That process isn't easy, but it's necessary. Before, in the same way, human beings must go through the breaking, the pushing, and the stretching if we want to reach our potential. Failure plays a central role here because failure removes the illusion of control. It shows us that we don't have all the answers. It forces us to innovate, to try new paths, to ask new questions. That is where wisdom comes from, not from always being right, but from being willing to learn when things go wrong. 4. A woman who has faced failure understands this deeply. She knows that every difficult season in her life has stretched her beyond what she thought she could handle. 4. And each time she came out stronger, sharper, and wiser. There is also something humbling about discomfort. It makes us realize that we are not invincible. And yet it also reveals that we are capable of more than we imagined. The woman who steps beyond her comfort zone discovers new strengths, talents, before and courage within herself. She might not have chosen the hardship, but once she walks through it, she carries a new kind of wisdom. The kind that no book, no classroom, and no lecture could ever provide. It is earned through experience, and it stays with her forever. So the truth is simple. Before, wisdom doesn't grow in the places where everything feels easy. It grows in the spaces where life is unpredictable, where we stumble, where we fall, and where we find the strength to rise again. Every moment of discomfort is a teacher. Every failure is a lesson. Every challenge is an opportunity to expand. And the woman who embraces this truth will never see obstacles as endings, but as beginnings. For she understands that the discomfort she feels today is the wisdom she will carry tomorrow, and that is how she continues to rise again and again. For scars are proof of survival, not weakness. They are the visible marks of battles fought, of struggles endured, of chapters in life where pain was present but perseverance was greater. Too often, people are taught to hide their scars, whether physical or emotional, as if they are something to be ashamed of. But the truth is, scars are evidence that you went through something that tried to break you before and you came out on the other side. They are not signs of fragility, they are signs of resilience. A scar does not tell the story of defeat before, it tells the story of endurance. When you look at someone who has scars, what you're really seeing is strength stitched into their story. Or those marks are not reminders of pain alone, but of healing. The wound could have been the end, but instead it closed, it recovered, it adapted. Or that healing process is itself a victory, and the scar is its certificate. 4. A woman who carries scars carries proof that she refused to be destroyed by what she went through. She didn't let it define her identity and weakness. 4. She transformed it into part of her strength. The world often teaches us to value perfection, to celebrate smoothness, to admire the untouched before. But perfection rarely tells a powerful story. It is the imperfect, the broken, and the rebuilt that inspire others. Think of ancient art forms like kintsugi in Japan, where broken pottery is repaired with gold. The cracks, once considered flaws, become the most beautiful part of the piece. In the same way, before, a scar does not lessen the value of a person, it enhances their story. It shows that they were broken at one point, but they were also mended in strength. For every scar is a reminder that pain is survivable. It whispers the truth that even in the darkest moments, healing is possible. For a woman who has faced failure, or rejection, or heartbreak, the scars she carries within her spirit are a living testimony that she refused to stay broken. Before, they remind her that no matter how bad it was, she endured. That endurance becomes wisdom. It tells her that if she survived once, she can survive again. It builds a quiet confidence that no textbook, no mentor, no success could ever teach her. There is something deeply human about scars because they connect us. When people see someone who has gone through pain and still stands strong, it resonates. It gives them permission to believe that they too can survive. Before, a scarred woman becomes a beacon, not because she is flawless, but because she is real. For her survival story becomes inspiration to others who are still in the middle of their struggle. She doesn't have to preach resilience, her very existence. For her very scars already do. And here's the most important part. Scars do not mean weakness, they mean healing. Weakness is when the wound is still open, when you are bleeding and vulnerable. But once that wound has turned into a scar, it means you are no longer bleeding, you are living again. For that mark is proof that you overcame. It's not about forgetting the pain, it's about honoring the strength that rose from it. 4. A woman who embraces her scars embraces her truth. She doesn't hide them. She wears them as reminders of her survival, and they empower her to keep moving forward. So if you carry scars, whether visible on your body or invisible in your heart, remember this: they are not your shame, they are your strength. Before, they are not signals of defeat, they are proof of your victory. You survived what others may not even have had the courage to face. 4, and that survival is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is the evidence that you can fall, break, and still rise stronger than before. That is the true power of scars. 4, perspective turns pain into power. That single truth has transformed lives, careers, and destinies before, because pain by itself doesn't create strength, perspective does. Pain is universal. Everyone will face it at some point: disappointment, rejection, failure, heartbreak, loss. But the way a person interprets that pain determines whether it becomes a prison or a platform. For many, pain feels like a dead end. It feels like proof that they weren't good enough, smart enough, or strong enough. But to a wise woman who learns from failure before, pain is not a punishment. It's a lesson. She knows that perspective is the filter through which pain either crushes you or creates you. Think about it. 4, two people can go through the exact same hardship, yet come out with completely different outcomes. One may remain stuck, replaying the hurt, feeding self-doubt before, and allowing bitterness to take root. The other takes that same pain and asks, what is this here to teach me? 4, what can I build from this? The difference is not in the event, it's in the perspective. And when perspective shifts, the entire story changes. That's when pain stops being something you suffer from and starts being something you leverage. When a woman learns to reinterpret her pain, she gains power that no degree, no award, and no title can give her. Every rejection becomes redirection. Every mistake becomes education. 4, every loss becomes motivation. She stops fearing failure because she has reframed what failure means to her. 4, failure is no longer a scarlet letter, but a stepping stone. It's not a sign of weakness, but proof of courage. The courage to try, the courage to risk, the courage to keep moving. With that perspective, she doesn't just survive pain, she transforms it into fuel. This is why so many of the most inspiring leaders, creators, and changemakers share the same story. At one point, they were broken, but they didn't stay broken. Instead, they rebuilt with more strength, for more clarity, and more determination. Pain was the fire that forged their wisdom. The same applies to every woman who has been told no, who has been underestimated, who has stumbled in pursuit of her dreams. Through perspective, for she turns those wounds into wisdom and those setbacks into comebacks. She realizes that pain is not an obstacle on her journey. It is part of the journey itself, before shaping her into who she was always meant to become. Power is not the absence of pain. Power is the ability to rise despite it. And perspective is the key that unlocks that ability. When you believe pain is unfair, you remain trapped by it. But when you believe pain is preparing you before you rise above it, the wise woman who learns from failure has this superpower. She does not see herself as a victim of her circumstances before, but as an architect of her response. That shift gives her control. And with control comes strength. Before. So when the next wave of pain comes, and it will, remember that it carries 2 options. It can either paralyze you or propel you. The choice is not in the pain itself, but in the perspective you bring to it. Choose to see your scars as reminders of battles you've already won. 4, choose to see rejection as proof you are reaching higher. Choose to see mistakes as signposts guiding you toward better paths. 4, because when perspective turns pain into power, no setback can hold you down. Instead, every struggle becomes a stepping stone toward the woman you are becoming. Wiser, stronger, and unstoppable, reinvention is the antidote to quitting. When life deals a hard blow, when plans collapse, 4, and when the weight of failure feels unbearable, most people see only 2 choices: push forward the same way or give up entirely. But there is a third path, a path reserved for those who refuse to surrender yet are wise enough not to repeat the same mistakes. That path is reinvention. It is the willingness to reimagine yourself, your approach, and your future, even when the past seems to demand otherwise. 4, reinvention is not denial of failure. It is acceptance. It is saying, yes, I fell. Yes, I lost. Yes, that version of me didn't work. But I am not chained to who I was yesterday. I have the power to build a new version of myself today. Quitting closes the door. Reinvention builds another one. And what separates those who stay stuck from those who rise is the courage to believe they can start again differently, 4, a woman who reinvents herself understands that failure is not a verdict on her worth, but feedback on her method. Maybe the business idea didn't work before. Maybe the relationship fell apart. Maybe the dream she once held slipped through her hands. But instead of quitting, she asks, what can I learn? Who do I need to become next? What new skills, mindsets, or strategies can I create? That act of questioning transforms failure into fuel. 4, it shifts the focus from what went wrong to what can be rebuilt. Think about a history remembers not those who never failed, but those who found new ways to rise. Before Oprah Winfrey was told she wasn't fit for television, she reinvented her career and became one of the most influential women in the world. J.K. Rowling was rejected by multiple publishers before Harry Potter became a global phenomenon. Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx, before turned repeated no's into an innovative billion-dollar company. These women didn't avoid failure. They outlasted it through reinvention. They didn't quit. 4, they transformed. The power of reinvention lies in its honesty. Quitting says, I can't. Reinvention says, I can. 4, but not like this. It admits that something must change, whether it's the strategy, the mindset, the environment, or even the identity you cling to. Reinvention is not about abandoning the dream, but about evolving the dream into a form that can survive reality. It's not a compromise, it's an upgrade. Before, and here's the truth, reinvention requires more strength than quitting. Quitting ends the struggle quickly. Reinvention demands patience, humility, and vision. It requires you to face the uncomfortable fact that the old way is gone and a new way must be created from scratch. That's hard, but it's also liberating. 4, because once you realize you can reinvent yourself once, you know you can do it again. That's how resilience is built, through repeated acts of rebirth. A woman who embraces reinvention becomes unstoppable. Why? Because she no longer fears failure. She knows that every ending is just the beginning of a new version of her story. She knows she can lose, adapt, and still come back stronger. And that confidence, the belief that she can always evolve, creates a life where quitting is no longer an option. So when the world tells you to give up, or when your mind whispers that it's over, remember this: you are never stuck as you are. You can shed the old skin, rewrite the script. 4, and step forward as someone wiser, tougher, and more prepared. Reinvention doesn't erase failure, it transforms it into the foundation of your next victory. 4, and that is why reinvention will always be the antidote to quitting. True wisdom inspires beyond success because it is not limited to the trophies, titles, or applause that come with winning. Success may capture attention, but wisdom holds hearts. Success is visible, often celebrated in numbers, awards, or public praise, but it can be fleeting. Wisdom, however, has a permanence about it. It carries depth. It has the ability to touch people in ways numbers never can. 4, when a woman learns from her failures, she doesn't just collect achievements, she collects perspective. And perspective has the power to guide, heal, and inspire others far beyond our personal victories. Think about it this way: success shows people what is possible before, but wisdom shows them how to navigate the journey to get there. Anyone can admire a winner on stage, but not everyone understands the struggles, the sleepless nights before, the self-doubt, and the failures that shape that winner's path. When a woman is transparent about her failures, when she shares how she fell and got back up, she gives others permission to see failure not as shame, but as a stepping stone. Her wisdom makes the journey relatable. It tells others, if I could rise after falling, so can you. That's inspiration rooted in reality, not just in results. Success alone can sometimes create distance. People might admire it, but feel disconnected, thinking, that could never be me. But wisdom bridges the gap. 4, it brings people closer because it speaks the language of shared struggle. Everyone knows what it feels like to fail. Everyone has tasted rejection or disappointment. 4, when a woman stands and says, I learned from it, I grew through it, and I became better because of it, she offers a roadmap others can follow. Or that is why wisdom carries more power to inspire than success ever could. Another truth is that success can fade. Markets change, trends shift, trophies gather dust. 4, and titles can be forgotten. But wisdom never expires. A single piece of wisdom, earned through failure, can impact generations. Before, a woman's story of resilience can live longer than her career. Her ability to teach others from her scars, rather than just showing off her medals, before, becomes a legacy. Wisdom is timeless because it addresses the human spirit, not just external achievements. And when people are inspired at the level of the spirit, or they carry that inspiration into their own lives, their families, their communities, and beyond. True wisdom also brings humility before, something success alone cannot guarantee. When someone only knows winning, they may believe the illusion that they are invincible. But when someone has failed, fallen and risen again, they understand the fragility of life. That humility makes them approachable, real, and trustworthy. Before, people listen to someone who has walked through fire and still stands with grace. That kind of wisdom softens hearts and strengthens minds. It inspires not just admiration, but action, because people see themselves reflected in the journey. And here's the final layer: wisdom multiplies. Success is often a personal achievement, but wisdom is a shared gift. A woman who has learned from failure can pass down her lessons to others, before equipping them to handle their own struggles. Her wisdom becomes fuel for someone else's courage. And as those people rise, they share their wisdom further, creating a ripple effect that goes far beyond one person's individual success. This is why true wisdom inspires beyond success. It is not about the finish line, but about the journey. It is not about what you gain, but what you give. Success might make someone look great, but wisdom makes someone unforgettable. And the woman who embraces her failures, transforms them into wisdom, and shares that with the world, leaves an impact far greater than success alone could ever achieve.